and welcome to the machine.
Hello, everybody.
It's Storm. You've swapped places. What's going on?
Yes. While you weren't looking.
Well, you weren't looking, you sneaky bastards. Right. Hello, Stormy. How are you doing, sir? Our friend.
Very well. I survived my 59th birthday.
Ooh.
You're only 59. Ooh. I mean,
yes. Thank you. I'm close to the centennial.
Sweet. You get your bus passing. Davey, how are you doing, sir? How are you?
Absolutely fine. As fine as a frillicking filly in a harvest time pasture.
That is pretty fine.
That's extraordinarily fine.
Right, so we're going to come on today. We're going to have a little bit of a chat about the Tik Tak video. Basically, only because Stormy went, can't be the Russians. There's no bloody chance. That's just stupid. So we'll have a chat about it. Hey, Shelley, how are you doing this evening? Lucky Shelley. Look at her.
Hey, Shelley.
Hello, Shelley. Hello.
So, not the Ruskies. Right, so we'll talk about what we think it could be a little bit later, shall we? But why did you come back with such a profound statement of definitely not this?
Okay, so I've been, reading a lot. Every day I get a really deep dive news feed on Russia versus Ukraine. And I really expected, well, all my expectations have always been exceeded somehow. It's, they won't go 3 days. Okay, they won't go a week. And this is what, month 3 now?
Yeah.
Not only has the Ukrainian army survived going on 3 months now, but they've done extreme damage to Russia's army, military assets. They even sank the mothership, the Moskva, I think it is called.
Yeah,
their fanciest thing that they had going, in the Black Sea. And I mean, just this weekend, there's a big fight over Snake Island again. Snake Island is famous because the Russians demanded the Ukrainian soldiers to surrender, and they sent them a big FU back. And then they got captured, then they got uncaptured, and then the Ukrainians took back Snake Island, and then the Russians tried to take it back, and then they all died. I mean, my point is, Russia has used their big fancy hypersonic missiles that was supposed to be, end of humanity, and those things don't work well, if at all. And excuse me, and so. If Russia's technology and training, we were all afraid of what we thought it was, but it just wasn't. I mean, it's a happenstance army. Yeah, they have a lot of nice technology that privateers kind of scrapped and sold off. I mean, what was it? There's a certain type of their most modern tank. 10% of the tanks. 90% of the tanks that arrived in Ukraine by train to be deployed were missing the engines because somebody got the engines and sold them on the black market. So if Russia's, government and military is so corrupt and so backwards that they can't even hold farmland in the country next door, it just can't. They can't. These Tic Tacs could not be them.
Most definitely. The Russian losses. Should we talk about the Russian losses up to now? Because I just Googled it. 23,000 troops dead, 187 planes lost, 155 helicopters lost, 986 tanks, 435 artillery systems, 2,418 personnel carriers, 4 mobile SRBM systems, which is a standard missile system, 151 MLRS systems, 8 boats, including, like you said, the 1,695 of the vehicles, 76 fuel trucks, 229 UAV, 72 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and 31 special equipment vehicles. Like when they put the bulldozers on a bridge and then significant losses. It's fair to say.
Yeah, significant. And they can't hold Ukrainian farmland next door.
The thing about the Ukraine as well, though, is that it's perfect territory for sort of tanks and things. And a military goes into Afghanistan, very difficult terrain. Tank warfare doesn't really work. Someone at the Ukraine works really well. And they've still had massive losses. Is that going to be a big part? We've given them loads and loads of weapons, though, which helps.
Well, they haven't really adopted a stalwart or even strict military armored doctrine when they've gone in there with, utilizing infantry support along with the mechanized brigades that they've been sending in. They've just pretty much sent them down the middle of the street with no cover into the buildings to the side to get absolutely blown away, quite frankly, by all the stuff that the NATO's sending over, quite frankly, or they're taking things out of the sky with the manpads, javelin systems going over there that are taking out the tanks. I think is it the T-14 Armata or something like that, the newest tank they got, something like that.
Yeah, the T-14,
yeah, and that's like Stormy said, it's having very little, if any, impact whatsoever. It's and of course, we're always subject to what we're subjected to, regarding losses and the type of footage that we're allowed to see. But it's painting a pretty grim picture as far as an ex-Soviet military machine's technical capability. So I don't know about the Tic Tacs myself, right?
I like it when Putin came out and went, if Britain doesn't stop getting involved, he's not bothered about the Americans for some reason. You're all right. Keep picking on us. Because we're innocent. We just sent some javelin missile systems over. But I mean, he came up and said, well, we could nuke Britain in like 3 minutes. And because of our new Trident systems and everything, our defense minister, trying to calm things down, went, we could nuke you in 90 seconds. That's not a way to... That's just escalating things. So we can do it quicker than you can.
While it is a bit ish, unfortunately for the Russians, it is true. There's a lot of that type of rhetoric being thrown around, which is massively suggestive of a last-ditch, threatening kind of behavior, because they're, if you like, conventional kind of military is very far short of the mark, isn't it? They can't hold farmland. Yeah.
US technology, not Russian. So let's talk about, because we all love talking about aliens, let's be honest. So we're also about the Ukraine war and just how a humanitarian disaster it is. One last thing on that is I genuinely think the Russians have shot themselves in the foot, though, because they're generally trying not to murder too many Ukrainians, because then the Russian people will turn on them, because it's their cousins. It's like us invading the Welsh. We'd all be up for it at first, but then we'd be like, I've actually, my auntie lives there, and we'd pull back, wouldn't we? What? we need our natural research
first.
It has been noted that it's not the first time you've mentioned the Welsh in that context.
Invading them. I live really close to them, It's like, I could have gone with the French, but nobody would argue with that. We just keep going, won't we? But yeah, so we'll move on from the Ukrainian war for a bit. What do we think the Tic Tac was then? Because I did a quick list of what can we agree on when it comes to the Tic Tac videos. And I think the things that I think it's agreeable that it's not CGI or faked. These videos are real and genuine. We know that. The pilots didn't know what they were looking at. I think that's fair to say. And the Pentagon didn't know what they were looking at. Or they wouldn't have released the videos because it made them look stupid otherwise. Let me just very quickly show you the videos we're talking about, just in case you've forgotten. It's only 5 seconds. Here we go.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
Just in case you've forgotten what one of the most famous videos in UFO history is, there we go. Released to the public during the pandemic, so nobody gave a flying, and nobody really cared. Is there anything else? Do you think those 3 points are fair?
Well, I went and rewatched a lot of Captain Farver's statements, in interviews. And in that video clip, you said, look, and there's like a whole swarm of them. Well, there's another radar screen that's beside the one that we were looking at that wasn't released, and it showed a swarm, according to everybody's testimony. There was a swarm of these, just not one. And I think the thing that we were looking at was the FLIR camera. I think.
Yeah.
I can't
remember. FLIR.
But the thing is, there's a lot of them in one cloud or one grouping, and so it just wasn't one anomaly. It was a fleet or a flotilla of anomalies, all flying the same direction, also with the same maneuverability, all with the same, expressing the same resistance to G loading. And it's like, oh man, it's, we all here in the United States, we always know that there's like some other kind of advanced airplane or advanced fighter jet that's always in the wings. What we know about like the stealth fighter, it was like going strong for 20 years before we even knew about it. So we've kind of gotten used to, okay, what's 20 years ahead that we don't know about? This is, the technology of these things, unless there's a lot of other advances that's been in the offing, that's just been running around, Area 51 that we just don't know about. These are 4 or 5 generations ahead of anything that we have seen. So it's kind of, if it is us, it is a tremendous jumpstart, advance compared to the, anything like the F-35 or any of those technologies. Like we didn't even know there was such thing as a stealth helicopter until we crashed one at Bin Laden's compound. Yeah. Well, where the hell did that thing come from?
Very stealthy.
Very
missed
stealthy.
The ground, though, went straight into it like a dart. But the thing you're talking about advanced technology, though, I always think about how back in the early 90s, before the first Gulf War, before the F-117 was released to the world, in ufology, we stopped thinking about flying saucers for a bit, and everything became triangular.
Yeah.
R3B and things like this as well. But I remember like X-Files and stuff, all the UFOs were triangular for a bit. It was that was what was in the culture. And then the F-117 came out and we went, oh, that's what we've been seeing. Because there were people that just hang around, like Area 51 and look for and they saw the F-117 come out and wondering, well, that's not a conventional aircraft. What the hell is that?
I mean, to be fair, though, the Belgian F-16s were chasing and recording flying triangles in the late 1980s. I think there's gun camera footage as well of that somewhere. I'm not sure that I've seen it or if it was released, but allegedly there is gun camera footage of flying black triangles over Belgium that were recorded by the Air Force.
That was within a day or two of the Cosford incident as well. Yeah. I live about 5 miles from Cosford. Been there several times. That was seen by, like air crew on the ground, people that have got no, something was over the skies of Britain and then flew over towards Belgium that night. Whether it was a B-2, whether it was a TR-3B, or whether it was some sort of other unidentified flying object, we don't know.
I mean, sorry, Jay, but I think that the type of descriptions of the size that was described would preclude it from being a prototype of an F-117 or something like TR-3B, because it was
being massive.
It was very, very, very large. Hundreds, in some instances, described as being hundreds of feet, if not hundreds of meters.
Chatford saw it at Cannock Chase. Again, that was on the same night. Basically, it goes Cosford, Cannock Chase, and then in the direction of it flying off towards eastern England. There's a nice straight line, basically.
Yeah.
But again, Cannock Chase is about 20 miles east of me.
The F-117
wingspan 200 meters.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say that the F-117, the wingspan is 43 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's teeny tiny.
It's just described it being hundreds, if not hundreds of meters down each edge.
Yeah, meters, just not feet. Meters. The things are huge, as I understand it.
Yeah, that's what I was 200 meters. He said when it came in, it filled the sky. He said it was enormous. But there were lots of different types. It's very difficult to identify how large an object is if you've not got something to sort of like But he was talking about it came low, and he felt it. It's just didn't just see it, but but then I think after the after the FR17 came out, we did switch a bit back to sources and
good old UFOs, yeah, the good old flying saucers.
It seemed to switch back, so that tends to suggest that we are seeing man-made vehicles because we've done it before. F-117, we thought it was a UFO. B-2, we thought it was a UFO. People saw that aircraft and said, well, there's no jet coming out, there's no glowing light off the engines and things like this because it was designed not to. So they thought it can't be a man-made aircraft. No, now it is. Is it done it again?
Well, I mean, it's one of them. If it moves like a duck, if it walks and talks and farts like a duck, is it a duck? I mean, it could just be a very good emanation of a duck.
Anally probes you for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
It's a duck.
It's still a duck, yeah.
It's an aggressive duck.
It's a
very aggressive duck, yeah. With a hidden agenda, people. It's an Area 51 duck. Ask Bob Lazar, he'll tell you all about them.
Oh, Bob Lazar.
In terms of just like the Tic Tacs, our advancement, not only would we have to make, great strides in material science and structural science, but there's a lot of laws of thermodynamics we just have to break. Yeah. Because they show, the temperature of the water. They're not shown as having an internal heat source or anything. Mm-hmm. And that's just those three things all together. I mean, those are challenges that Elon Musk can't work around,
So I think the biggest problem I have is a power source. I think there's lots of things we can do if we've got enough power. You can generate very powerful electromagnetic fields and things like this. And I understand the theory of doing some of the things that Fravor said this vehicle did, which we'll talk about in a sec. We don't have a power source that can do that. You need a bloody nuclear reactor. We don't have anything that can generate that sort of power.
Something that Stormy said a minute ago. I mean, regarding heat signature and giving off the speed, velocity, and the type of maneuvers these things are doing, surely, I mean, we can only guesstimate the type of size with the given reference points that we do and don't have. Would friction not cause enough? I mean, even when we re-entry vehicles coming into the Earth's atmosphere, just alone, this generating. Surely there's got to be something, but like I say, they didn't. And it was I did make a note because I never remember the off the top of my head. It was the USS Princeton, wasn't it, originally? I believe. Was a petty officer Trevor. Well, he saw some footage of it from the same night, which was taken in November the 14th, 2004. And what he saw was a totally different video than the one that was released by the Department of Defense, which was showing a saucer-shaped UFO and not a Tic Tac at all. That came out of the water, shot out of the water, and then started to mimic the movements of the F-18s.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
two completely separate videos.
There were several people that used to come out and say that these things used to. Well, Fravor said it more than once, that these things would just drop in, and by that they meant that it would just appear from the height of their radar and just drop down. My friend Andrew is a big Stargate fan. On my other channel, Sidetrack, which if you are watching, go subscribe to that. Links in the description. You can link to these two as well, but Sidetrack's more important. But he said it would just drop in for the top of their radar. So the height of their radar was like 80,000 feet or something, I think he said. Yeah. And these things would just drop in from that. And then they'd say they would hover around for a couple of days and then bugger off. We don't have anything that can do that. We don't have anything that can close to do that. Hover for 2 days. Drones, nothing like that. We don't have that technology, or that we know of. And apparently, Fravor and other people, other whistleblowers have come out and said it happens all the time. It's quite common.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing is off the Atlantic coast and the Pacific coast. The Navy sees these all the time. And there was just one leak that and we can always discuss the veracity of this, but some guy that took a picture of the radar with his cell phone and then uploaded the video. And, it kind of goes in with what we've been talking about. And then there's other videos of showing these Tik Taks going in the air and then diving under the water and then coming back out with no change of velocity, no disturbance of the water, which again, how do they do that?
And the splash video.
Right. And that's right. Yeah, the guy was going splash. Yeah. And all of a sudden, all these technological marvels start stacking up and say, okay, maybe we could get one of those with what we know today. I mean, the most sophisticated heat shield we have commercially is going on the Starship, the Elon Musk SpaceX Starship. Those are manufactured in Titusville, Florida, and those are really advanced materials. And, God knows Elon Musk has slung enough billions of dollars at that heat shield for the Starship. Now, there has to, with all the things we're seeing from all these naval releases, there's not just one technology that's breaking our brain. It's like, going through matter, atmospheric, no change in velocity or speed or to the vehicle going between air and water, dense water, like salt water. And it just stacks up. It's like, okay, something we can probably get away with one of those. We probably have the technology, if we focus really hard, get rid of one of those things, but all of it at once.
Well, we'll just basically like to say, you know your credentials better than I do, Stormy, but it's fair to say you're an avionics person. When it comes to aviation and stuff, you know what you're talking about to a degree. I mean, and there's the American level of knowing what you're talking about. I mean, if we had a British person who's in it, I'm sure they'd be much better.
Oh, of course.
Obviously. Who do you call when the Americans have a problem? India, actually, isn't it, for tech support? But anyway.
Yeah, usually, yeah.
So, but you know what we're talking about when it comes to aircraft. So when Fravor talks about seeing this thing, and he says it would jump from one side of his aircraft to the other in a blink, it would travel. He says he got within about 200 feet of it, and he could see it. It was right in his nose, and it disappeared in a blink. It accelerated, and it was gone. But also his wingman, who was 20,000 feet above him, also lost the vehicle as quickly. Yeah. But one of the things he described, which I've always found interesting, he says the way it moved was like, imagine a ping pong ball in a glass tumbler, and you shake it. And that's how he described it. Looked like it moved. Yeah. Is there any way you can just, from an avionics and aviation point of view, explain any of that? A balloon caught in some wind, and there was light off Venus, and I think. Do
you think it's sorry for interrupting, but do you think it's worth, just for the people who don't know Stormy, his background in avionics? So if they do see this video, they're not just thinking, well, anybody can lay claim to knowing about this, that, and the other. But he does genuinely have, he is the real deal.
Yeah, I think I do respect your privacy, Stormy, but you're willing to tell people.
My day job is I'm a professor of aeronautics at a university in Southern California.
Remembering American.
Yes. Aluminum is the word we choose.
Aluminum.
See, the time we got aluminum, you guys had already ripped off the other eye, so we were just left with the scraps.
No, wasn't our vowels.
2 eyes.
We just got that second-rate aluminium rubbish that we got.
Well, you should have given us the other eye. We tossed your tea back, and so payback was, well, we'll just take the extra eye out of aluminium and just give them aluminum.
And I think Americans be asked to say aluminium.
Anyway, I'm a professor of aeronautics. I'm a pilot. I have my own airplane. I'm licensed to work on any airplane or spacecraft in U.S. airspace.
Excellent. And again, I won't say anything, but you're considering changing employment recently, which again we won't go into, but I know what you're going. And it's like, you know your shit. We'll go with that.
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know your shit. So again, moving from one side to the other, an aircraft that could go over the horizon in a blink of an eye, and that can move in a way that is described as a ball in a glass tumbler.
Okay, so let's look at it from a point of view. Let's ignore the heat stuff, the heat that it would have to accumulate and just from friction. The way you could probably do that, if it could be done, is the ship's not there at all. It's a hologram of some sort, and it's some sort of projection. Then you could, it's here, and then you shine it over here. Now, there's been some theories that the U.S. needs the Tic Tacs as some part of the U.S. Navy's Department of Signals. And part of a some sort of advanced fleet diversion in times of warfare, in electronic warfare, and the Tic Tac is just the default image. That the Tic Tac could be a carrier group, that it could project as a carrier group. Now, if it's holography, then things can quickly shift back and forth, because then you're dealing with the speed of light, and the speed of light really doesn't care that much about the density of the atmosphere.
But it was tracked on radar, and
you see, then you bring up the radar crap, and then that blows everybody out of the water.
He was doing so well until that point. You had to ruin it.
This is his show. I was doing so well. Yeah, and then you bring up everything else, and it's like, oh, it's on radar. I said, well, okay, fine.
In Star Trek, we sorted that, though, because the Doctor got a hard light projector. And also in Red Dwarf, we sorted that out as well, because Rimmer got a hard light projector as well. So, hard light.
Yeah.
There you go, sorted. Next. Good evening, Ian. How are you, sir? By the way, Shelley's asking you out.
Oh, let's see.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on where we're at in Southern California here. I mean, Southern California is like 400 miles long.
Yeah. Maybe you guys get together.
Yeah.
Don't talk about me, though, because, how many expletives are allowed in restaurants in Southern California? You're going to get kicked out. Anyway, so talking about the heat, right? Just because that is quite important. Because, air is like a soup. And friction builds, like you said, an engine comes in, it hits our atmosphere, but it needs significant thing. How much heat would a vehicle? How could you get around that? Is there any way you could move in the way we're talking about without generating significant heat?
In space,
a vacuum.
Oh yeah.
So there goes that. It's remember the SR-71, old airplane now these days. The tip of the engine air intake is this. Well, it's a long cone. It's probably about a foot long, and it's pure titanium. Because it had to be pure titanium, or the speed alone, the air going into the engine, would have melted anything else. And so even at Mach 3, that they tell us it was the top speed, they had to resort to just pure titanium. This was before we got into advanced materials, silicas and things like that, space shuttle tiles.
Ceramics and things
right.
that.
Advanced ceramic, really advanced ceramics. So at Mach 3, you have to have at least our first excursion really having to deal with friction in terms of aviation was those little titanium. You can probably find a picture someplace on the web. I got a picture of one. But yeah, it was titanium, and then we went to silica-based materials. But man, the faster you go, kind of the heat goes off on an exponential curve.
It's not linear, is it? It's not linear.
No.
What were the tiles on the base of the shuttle supposed to be resistant to? The ceramic tiles on the base of the shuttle. It were many thousands of degrees, wasn't it? I believe.
Oh yeah, you could heat it up to like
10,000
degrees. Get it in the center. red hot and still hold it in your hand, bare flesh. That's how well it dissipated heat, and it's not enough to handle the
velocity of the Tic Tac's maneuvers. Through air.
Right.
My favorite SR-71 story, other than the fact that it leaked like crazy on the ground because it was that America doesn't have a great deal of titanium. Most of it comes from Russia and the Siberia region. So the CIA had to set up a load of dummy companies to buy titanium from the Russians, to ship it back, to build the SR-71, to fly the SR-71 back to Russia to take photos.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's like that. I don't know why.
And you'd think that they put all this titanium in their MiG fighters, but it seems like I've had the opportunity to inspect a couple of MiG fighters, for museums and stuff, and it seemed like the engineering philosophy for building a MiG fighter, especially back in the 60s and 70s, well, just add iron. There's so many components that's just ferrous based. It's like, why are you doing this? You've got all the world's titanium, and you make like turbine fans out of iron. They were
selling it all to the Americans to build the SR-71. Right, so Fravor talks.
To be fair, though, sorry, did the Americans not eventually use the technology that the Russians were using for booster rockets so they could launch the Saturn V correctly? Because they weren't working the American technology. Fairly sure they had to use the Russian boosters from the trying to remember the name of the rockets. Yeah, Soyuz
rockets.
The old Energias.
They were using those rockets still until recently. They've got the new heavy lift SLS rocket.
Right.
And apparently one of the first thing they did when NASA decided they're going to build this new rocket was whip out all the old Russian, because it was these young engineers sort of thing. They got the old Russian rocket out to have a look at it, to figure out how it worked, to figure out how they got that much power from that. The Russians were way ahead of us in Russia.
And there's a guy on YouTube, Everyday Astronaut. He has an excellent video on Russian rocket engines, and their designs are still some of the best. I mean, I think they're the basis for SpaceX's Raptor 2. I mean, they're just really excellent. Their manufacturing, however, was god awful, and we took their design cues from their earlier engines, and our ex-Nazi scientists that worked for NASA back in the day, they took those engines and developed them into the what we call the Atlas. The Saturn V.
I think Operation Paperclip at the end of the World War II, we got the wrong scientists. We got Von Braun, and I think there's a bunch of other Russians. The Russians seem to get better ones, but. So what Fravor talks about is that he thinks that it was like the vehicle was in an intense electromagnetic field or something like this, something that was almost like an anti-grav technology. So that it was, and he said that's the only way he could explain the way it seemed to be, almost like distorting time slightly, in that it would appear and disappear and go like instantly from one spot to another. Yeah. And the only way he could see that is that from his perspective, it looked like it was almost disappearing and reappearing. But he doesn't think it was. He thinks it was because of whatever this engine that it uses. Now, I know we're getting into sci-fi there. We should be back on Sidetrack talking about it. But does that sort of make sense in the sort of thing that we're seeing, maybe?
Well, this drawing here, this is something Bob Lazar sent me, and his design, the thing that he drew out, and his idea of why this happens is that because of the focused, now I'm not sure if this is applicable to the Tic Tac technology or whatever, but his idea was it always would seem unstable, right? Kind of random, because the intense gravitational forces, it has you have the Einsteinian shift of vision through an intense gravimetric field. So even though the ship may be stable, our vision of it, because of the gravity waves, makes it look like it's shifting. But what Farver said was it was like it wasn't shaking all around. Well, he did say it was like a ping pong ball in a mason jar. And so that could kind of like what, Lazar kind of explained, because it always seemed like it's jumping around. It's like we can, if we have a telescope, and the way we prove this is to take a telescope and observe stars drifting behind the sun. Now we know when it goes behind the sun, but if we can still see it, we have what's called, and I think this whole thing is called gravitational lensing, where your sight follows the gravity waves, follows the gravity field, so we can see behind the sun because of its intense gravity field. So if we have something really close, a few hundred feet, few hundred meters away, then we can, any kind of slight variation will appear kind of extreme to us as an outside observer to the craft.
And that's why I brought up power earlier. Even though I think the technology for us to do something like that, we're way behind on materials. This is why I mean plasma and cold fusion is always 15 years away. Because even though we understand the science, we understand what we need to do, creating the metals and the materials that are able to withstand what we want to do, problem.
Make another point, actually, Jamie, as well, is judging speed, or the human people, humans' ability to judge speed is always, or can be called into conjecture for any number of reasons. And a famous one, especially when it comes to people that are making UFO sightings, if you like, or looking up at the night skies, autokinesis, where they're focusing on a distant object like a star. Anybody can do it. You can go outside and try it when it's dark. Any people that are watching this, and focus on a star in the distance, and it will appear to wobble. And it's the muscles in your eye are not capable of maintaining that type of focus. So it will appear to move. You will see it appear to shift or wobble or jiggle about. Another one is our eyes, or our brain's ability to process the information that we see coming through our eyes, almost has a shutter speed like a camera, and beyond a certain kind of velocity, we're not able to track it with any degree of absolute. And so the human's ability to judge things can always be called into question. And I've seen that, or experienced that many times myself when conducting investigations or UFO research. One of the first things to fall, or one of the first hurdle, is witness testimony in many cases, unfortunately. I'm not disfavor, just saying,
Yeah. Well, that's the one problem, is it? Because people like Mick West have famously debunked these videos. Mick West says that the Tik Tak video in particular is just a pilot tracking another vehicle. It's just another aircraft. He's done lots of maths about how the vehicle was not doing the speeds they were talking about, and he's done triangulation and all sorts. And he might be able to. I think if you look hard enough, you can generally quite regularly make facts fit something if you really, really want to, if you're looking for a mundane thing. But what he completely ignores, and what he has no I've actually messaged him and spoken to Mick West about this, and he says, I ignore the witness statements. Because the witness statements, and I said, well, even though all your math's right, the only way you can say categorically that this is what they're looking at is not something unusual is if you would completely ignore the witness statements. All you got to do
is take on board the old adage that's been thrown about many times before. As you can see, for 20, 30, 40 people witness a car accident, and you will get many different versions of what actually went on. The event happened as the event happened, but people's interpretation of what they see. Obviously, you have emotional recollection, and obviously a true recollection of events, but people's statement about what occurred, even to the extent of the color of the car and so on, can be massively changed. Now, there was another video that come about with Tik Tak. Was this not more recently? Have a look at my notes. When was this now? 2000. Well, one just a few days ago, May the 4th, 2022, and then 1 August the 10th, 2019, over Summerlin, Las Vegas, by a guy called Steve Barone. I don't know if anybody's seen that video footage of a Tik Tak captured. He estimated it to be about 15 to 20 miles away from where he was. And then followed by another one that appeared to be just like a saucer shape. So in keeping with what Petty Officer Trevor said on board the Princeton, that although video footage was captured of a Tik Tak, that there was secondary video footage that was also captured of a saucer type craft that came out of the water and, like I said, mimicked the F-18s. I don't know if anybody was aware of the more recent footage, and whether they'd seen it and what they think of it is where I'm going with it, really.
I hadn't seen it actually, but I'm trying to Google it at the moment, see if I can find it.
One of my problems with Mick West and his interpretation of the Tik Tak videos is that, yeah, he definitely ignores the witness statements. And in this case, we have two trained observers. Is that something that's trying to kill me, or should I shoot it down, or is that friendly? You know, you know, naval pilots. I mean, they are. I mean, all American pilots are trained really heavily in observation, and so when the pilot says, you know, we were currently at 5,000 feet, well, that's a witness statement coming from a naval aviator that he just, you know, flatly ignores the pilot statement of how high he was flying at whatever, you know, and it's like, really, that's just as much data as anything on the screen, you know, and he was, you know, he was driving the airplane, you know, he was reading off the gauges, you know, and it's still like he comes, well, it can't be that because of whatever, and to be honest, Mick West math ain't all that great. I'm just saying. I mean, he makes a lot of assumptions that
he's based it on he's starting the assumption is that this isn't anything unusual. That's his initial assumption, and then he works backwards. So he makes something fitted. That's how I feel, and I've told him that straight, and he said, "Well, that's my opinion." But you can't just ignore expert witness statement.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Mick West is the kind of the guy that would take, COVID, so therefore ivermectin must work.
Yeah,
that kind of a guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to bring COVID into this conversation, but he's that kind. He's just, you know, he's like the Donald Trump of scientists, I think.
Bring out the bleach.
Yeah, but exactly. Listen, I was going to say something really bad that would get us bad then, but I stopped myself. See, I'm growing as a YouTuber. I mean, because the same thing, you know, you got Fravor, you got Underwood, you got the list goes on and on and on. To be honest, of witnesses, and these are people that are expert witnesses, but also you've got the Pentagon. The Pentagon have come out and released these 3 videos because they were leaked, and then they had to. But to be fair, they released these 3 videos, and they've, you know, reporters and everyone else says, "What is it?" And they've just gone, "Oh, no clue."
Give it the old Scooby-Doo treatment.
Sorry.
Well, that's the ultimate eyewitness, isn't it? This is what they do for a living. They pilots track other aircraft, and they did not know what the hell they were looking at. The Pentagon have got people to analyze these videos and have said, we don't know what we're looking at. And Mick West goes, it's just another plane. No, come on. The people that know are telling you it's not.
Can I just address a comment that I've just seen in the side chat there? Ian, this most recent one, that was the one, I think even the one seen in 2019 and 2022, May the 4th, this year, was seen with the naked eye, as well as recorded on video camera. But the more recent ones have been seen with the naked eye. But as far as I'm aware, the 2004, which is the one we're referring to, was only recorded on electric means, gun camera and radar, was it not?
Yeah, I believe so. This was the Tik Tak videos, you mean? They were seen with the naked eye, weren't they? But they're only recorded. But everything's got to be recorded, but they were seen by the naked eye.
Yeah, I mean, they saw it with their eyes, their naked eyes, and then like, well, what the hell is that? And so then they went to instruments to check, okay, is this like some sort of crazy refraction or some sort of, I don't know, plastic gyre in the middle of the ocean? So, oh crap, that thing's there.
Yeah.
You know, not only, you know, because you if you're flying, you've got a lot of tasks you got to maintain. You got to maintain thrust and lift and where you're going and not hit anything else. So it is, you know, definitely a multitasking job. So when you see something like, well, what in the hell's that? And it's not doing anything that we know that can operate in our physical world as we understand it. And then it pops up on multiple instruments, sensor instruments in your cockpit. Well, it's kind of there. You know, there's something there because, you know, the radar and the FLIR, everything, all that is backing up to our organic sensors, our eyeballs.
Let's find the name of the warship.
The last thing is that we get into these deep dives into like the Mick of the mind of Mick West or whatever, and still we ignore the ginormous elephant in the room. Government disclosures stating unequivocally we are in possession of craft not of this earth.
Yeah,
craft, not rocks.
Yeah.
Craft. So this is their admission. How do you explain that away, Mick? It could be false flag, could be false disclosures, but to what end?
Cui bono, as they would say in there, the Romans would say. Cui bono. Who benefits? For what benefit? For what reason?
Yeah.
And we're back to the same
thing. To make themselves look stupid.
The Russians.
Yeah.
Was it the USS Princeton you're thinking of, Jay?
USS Princeton, the triangular objects. That to me never looked like that. To me looked like light anomalies and things like this. They usually like that. To me, I was never convinced by that. I thought that was Jeremy Corbell going, I need another video. People,
he needed to make a house payment.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've got 3 legitimate daughters going through college. Probably, I don't know. I don't know. He might have, allegedly.
Probably, maybe, allegedly.
YouTube backtracks and stupid comments immediately.
Oh yeah.
But these Tic Tacs and other videos, so they're not like that. It is a solid object we're looking at, and it's not, like the Princeton. But to go back to like, why would they do that? The Pentagon is obviously part of defense. In the UK, when we've done research on this, so the MOD, the Ministry of Defense, came out and basically said, right, well, these UFOs, they're not a threat, so we don't worry about them. They don't say they don't exist. They just say we've decided they're not a threat.
Yeah, they pose no significant threat to homeland defense.
So
that was a statement by the UK government. Is that correct?
Yes, the Ministry of Defense. Yeah. In the US, they have things like ATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, followed up by the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenal Task Force. I Googled ATIP and it said led by Louis Elizondo. I goes, I fucking argue that statement. But anyway.
Meandered.
Yeah, he might have been in and around it. I don't know if he led it, but anyway. So the Americans, ever since Blue Book, have said we don't do this. We don't research UFOs because it's not true. And then we find out again during COVID that actually they never stopped researching it. They spend millions of dollars every year on it. Why? It's not looking at aerial. They call it advanced aerospace threat. Why?
So they've told the truth then. I'm sorry, Stormy. They've told the truth then, technically speaking, because if they change the name of the study, then they're no longer looking into UFOs or flying saucers. It's an advanced anomalous phenomena study or whatever. So, technically, it's like that, isn't it? Hidden in plain sight, and that's what they've been doing all along. I mean, I don't think any dyed-in-the-wool ufologist or researcher would have believed for a minute they weren't doing anything other than looking into what's above them in the skies. Yeah. But
my point is going to be, though, that our military, their job is to protect us from enemies. Right? That's literally their job. Particularly the American government is saying that they can protect Americans. So for them to come out and say, there are these objects, they're advanced, we don't know what they are, and they're buzzing our military and we can't do anything about it. Why would they do that? Why would they admit it? It goes against literally everything they're supposed to do, doesn't it?
Well,
only if they're a threat.
Only if they're a threat. Well, I mean, there's lots of things that the American DoD thinks are a threat that they just go way over the top to deal with. Vietnam was one such, the great red threat. I mean, how many billions of dollars in 55,000 dead Americans? That's what we tossed at the problem, the threat of Ho Chi Minh.
Mm-hmm.
But evidently Pol Pot wasn't that much of a threat because we spent
No, he was fine, yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, good guy.
Couldn't
3
be
million dead there, by the way.
Yeah, when it serves a purpose.
Yeah. I was like, there's an Eddie Izzard joke. He says about how Pol Pot apparently killed 3 million people. So he didn't. He ordered the death. Because what was he doing? Waking up, murder, breakfast, murder. And it would take a long time to kill 3 million people.
You really should be a history teacher.
I know.
Yeah, if only.
If only.
I bring facts.
Do some lectures on the Shoah. I'm sure the Jewish community would appreciate you.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to get in public again. But you know, that's what I mean. It is a serious point, though, is that when anybody sort of goes in and debunks these things, you say, well, but I don't think the Pentagon or anyone else does anything that they don't have to. In this case, these 3 videos were leaked by somebody, so they sort of had to say something. But they could have just lied, and they didn't. They said, we don't know what it is. Why?
You know, and maybe, I mean, it could be a generational thing, you know. It could be that, you know, the guys, and I'm not sure how it was in the UK, but growing up during the Cold War in America, I mean, it was a paranoia feeding frenzy. You know, all of our newspapers, all of our magazines like Time, Newsweek, U.S. News, and World Report, every issue had like how many tanks we have, how many tanks the Reds have, you know, who's making the most, milk. Here's one story from the USSR. Some guy in the Politburo saw that Wisconsin built America's biggest dairy processing facility. That's all Wisconsin. I mean, it's wall-to-wall cheese and milk, and that, it's farmland for as far as the eye can see. And so they said, okay, we're going to build the world's biggest milk processing facility, but they went through all of their political back scratching and all of this stuff, and they happened to build the world's biggest milk processing facility thousands of miles away from the cows. There was not even rail service between the cows in the Ukraine to the facility, which was almost, and it was in eastern Russia, maybe near Novosibirsk, if I'm remembering the story. So there was no train track from the cows in the Ukraine and so the time the milk got all the way across, Central Asia to the milk was spoiled. And that is how driven the paranoia between USSR and the United States was back in those days. And everything was paranoid driven in secrecy. The secrecy was, don't say anything because the Reds may find out, but now, it's, because there was an older generation, that was my grandfather's generation. And I think Lou Elizondo, he's probably 10, 15 years younger than I am. So there's a whole different generation of security guys, and they may just see it differently. That generation grew up, on 2001: A Space Odyssey. I grew up on Star Wars, and Star Trek. So it may just be a generational thing that the secrets, the secret culture, the secretive culture of DOD during the 50s and the Cold War, maybe we're not the same. We don't have that today. I'm just speculating. I'm totally speculating here, but maybe.
As we're coming up to the last 5 minutes, so we just have a little bit of a vote or a conversation about what we think it could have been then. So, because I think we've got 4 choices. That's all right. It's Russian, it's Chinese technology, some sort of advanced drone technology, most likely. It's American technology, or other, as in probably unearthly, off-world technology that they were tracking. If I had to put a phaser to your head, like, what would you put your money on?
Craft not of this earth, because all that came out at the same time.
Okay.
And Harry Reid, the senator of Area 51, And he said, you guys haven't even scratched the surface of what's going on, of what we're really dealing with. And this is a sitting senator. I mean, he was so old, he retired in the Senate, and he was on the Intelligence Committee. He's the one that Harry Reid actually admitted to moving money around kind of illegally through the Treasury to fund all this.
Oh, we haven't even mentioned DARPA. All the skunk works.
Oh, I did DARPA. Yeah.
That famous line, isn't it, from Independence Day? Do you really think a hammer costs $20,000? A wrench costs $40,000? Dave, how about you? If you're like a phaser to your head, what you doing?
A little bit of a convoluted answer, but I'll give it as honestly as I can. I don't know off the top of my head the exact expenditure by the on Blackwell projects in the US and by what's going on over in the US regarding technology for space travel. I know that Elon Musk is putting a fair bit of money in there, and if he is still using conventional rocketry to advance what he's doing, if he is thinking about popularizing Mars and so on and so forth. And he isn't like flying things around like the Tic Tac, if what we've led to believe about the Tic Tac is true. I will also say that torpedo-shaped and these lozenge-shaped craft were actually being seen in the 40s and 50s. They're not actually new. So it's not so much following a trend like the triangular craft and the TR-3Bs and the F-117s and so on and so forth, because these things were being seen many, many years ago. All over Europe, all over the UK, US, Canada. So lozenge-shaped craft, as they were being described then, Tic Tac, same kind of shape, obviously, or sausage, cigar, even cylindrical UFOs were being seen many, many decades ago. So I don't think it's following a fashion of what we're about to see released by Blackwell projects. So if I had a phaser to my head, it goes against every fiber of my being, but I would say I would lean more towards number 4, something we don't know, something otherworldly.
Yeah, Mystery Machine videos, that's a big thing for Dave.
Yeah, I know, man. Yeah.
Jay, I think in a previous video, you mentioned you were talking about, we were talking about Tic Tacs yet again, and you're asking me, what is the what would be the aerodynamic, or what would be the purpose of the shape? We see all these crazy shapes in UFOs, and so I thought about it. And what if the Tic Tac, like this one, is a single engine, right? The bottom of it points to where it's wanting to go. The bottom is here. It goes in this direction. Whatever the bottom is focused on, that's where it goes. Well, what if the Tic Tacs is a twin engine, right? Like it's got an engine here and an engine here. So this let me see if I can get this right. So what if there's one engine on the bottom and there's also another engine on the other side? What if it's just a twin engine UFO? And that's why it's a Tic Tac. Think of the maneuverability you could have. I mean, going from one place to another rapidly, you wouldn't have to swing the nose around or the engine around to make a turn. You could just turn one off and turn the other on, and all of a sudden you appear to be someplace else.
No different than conventional technology in a way, as like having a locomotive at each end of a train.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is that I think we have different size and different shape aircraft and vehicles for different jobs and different tasks. There's no reason why an alien wouldn't have. What did Bob Lazar call it? The sport model and the different models. To me, that just makes sense that a UFO or an alien vessel might have different purposes or different needs, and so they look a bit different. For me, phaser against my head, I would say that is. I generally do believe UFOs are visiting, and aliens might be visiting the Earth, and alien probes. I don't think little grey men are probably visited. I think it's probably, if they are little grey men, they might be drones themselves, but I do believe that. I think probably most of what we see in the skies though is man-made versions. I've always gone, Dave. Sorry.
What are the Tic Tacs, Jamie? Never mind most of what we're seeing in the sky.
I
This,
think
that,
the
and the
Tic
other.
Tac is
Phase it to the head. You think the
it's
Tic Tac's man-made?
Man-made, and I think the reason why we don't see a lot of them is because I think they use alien technology and these things, and it's possibly.
That's a wonderful caveat. That well done.
Well, no, because I've always had this argument with Damien, who used to do videos with us, and he says, "Well, why aren't we using it then?" And I said, I genuinely believe there's elements of that technology we can't replicate or we can't easily replicate. So we can't use it in day-to-day. And we still need rockets. We're still going to need Elon Musk is still going to have to build rockets because whatever it is, it's in that technology. We can't easily replicate it, is my opinion. Or there's a power source we can't replicate or something like this, a material we can't replicate.
Element 115, a stable version of it.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
Bob would be so proud of you, Stormy.
But I think alien technology, there's two possibilities for me, though, than why the Tic Tac was tracked by that aircraft. The aliens want them to track it, or it's a man-made version that's not as good. Because I genuinely believe if alien probe came here and didn't want to be seen, it wouldn't be. The technology come off a Centauri to come here, then they've got technology capable of avoiding our detection. Or they just don't care. There's three possibilities, actually, to be fair. They just don't care. So when our fighters go buzzing around, they're just doing whatever they're doing, and they actually don't give a flying that there's a military aircraft flying about.
I think usually where mankind's concerned and the development of any kind of technology, especially if there's a rift between east, west, north, south, whichever way you want to look at it, at the first available opportunity when it's right, they will say, look what we got.
I think so. They can't do that, though, if there's elements of that technology they can't replicate.
Well, you see, I sort of like to lean towards if there's elements that they can't replicate, then we wouldn't be seeing the results that we're seeing because we're still seeing the maneuvers, we're still seeing seeing these objects move about the way that they are. So obviously, we've got enough of the technology to replicate that kind of movement, whether it's alien or not. So you know, we've either got it or we haven't. I don't think we're playing at it. No, and if we are playing at it, why hide it?
I wonder whether we have crashed vehicles that we've then taken. Say it's 115. We can't replicate 115, but what we can do is remove it from one alien spacecraft that's crashed, build a vehicle, and maybe use some of it to power that vehicle. But then we can never admit that because then say the aliens, Aviation Weekly go, oh my God, this is amazing. Can you build more? And they'd have to go, no.
There's only one thing better than there's only one thing better than having it, and that's making the other side thinking you have it. So I still believe the power of propaganda would lend itself towards look what we've got, you know.
Yeah. I mean, look at the power of Russia's propaganda. You know, over the years, they had all these hypersonic missile tests that they lovingly showed us, but they work like shit in theater. It's their ships, all this technology, anti-missile technology. Well, those ships are now submarines. Yeah. And the power of, and the Russia's been doing this all along. We dropped 2 atom bombs. So they gloriously showed us their attempts. So we knew about it.
Yeah.
We certainly knew, they let everybody know that Sputnik had launched and was orbiting Earth. That really freaked out America. So there's a long history of that. But here,
out of the 4 options, then quickly, what is 100% not?
Russian.
It's 100% not Russia.
Russia or China. China are probably 10 years behind our military technologically, even now. I mean, they're catching, but they're still way behind us. They're way behind the British. Our naval vessels and aircraft are way better than the Chinese. Well, they're probably about 10 years ahead of the Chinese. The only problem is 5 years ago, we were 20 years ahead of them. They're catching quickly, and they probably will overtake us, but I don't. For me, there's no way this is Chinese or Russian. It's American or alien. That's the only 2 options for me.
In chat, I think Ian's got a really good point, and it would, yeah, there's all sorts of problems. I mean, it was disclosed in New York Times, and then like nobody talked about it. There was no follow up, really.
They promised a follow-up, didn't they? Then the pandemic sort of slowed down, and actually people were paying attention, so there was never a follow-up.
Yeah,
and the report obviously was nothing.
And
I think
that story, unless it was one of us, talking about it, that story didn't last the 24-hour news cycle, unless you're Tucker Carlson talking about the white master race in space.
Oh,
Anybody doesn't help the cause. Do you know that the most famous ufologists out there at the moment, none of them help to keep this serious. The money-making machine that is, always got his name's going out of my head. Oh, fuck's sake.
Stephen Greer.
Stephen Greer, thank you. It's just my brain just went, no, I'm not telling you that. Stephen Greer. I was offered $10 billion. Would you like to buy this book off me for $100? No, take the $10 billion that the government offered you and just leave me alone. I've got energy technology. We're 5 years away. Give us $100 and we can make it. Thief. Louis Elizondo doesn't help. Tom DeLonge doesn't help. You can even argue Bob Lazar doesn't at times. I generally am a Bob Lazar fan, but Christ, he doesn't help sometimes with the things he comes out with. All of the top people in ufology, that idiot with the, it's not aliens, but it is.
George Solokolis, or whatever it's called.
George
Solokolis.
Yeah, it does. All of these people, they really don't help the cause, man. They don't just talk sensibly. It's not like names are not my problem. I'm sorry, I've had a migraine all day, so I've not my brain.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well,
Who's the guy that passed away a couple of years ago? Oh, and he mentioned Nick Pope. Don't start me on Nick Pope. He really doesn't help the cause. It's
like about Bob Dean.
Sorry?
Was you referring to Bob Dean?
No, who's passed away a couple of years ago? Literally a couple of years ago. Hated Bob Lazar.
Not Clifford Stone.
There was the skeptic guy, beard, great.
He was a big ufologist.
What's his name?
I can't think of his fucking name.
Chucklehead.
I'll Google it, but anyway.
Chucklehead.
Oh, I forgot about Richard Hoagland, man. Yeah.
Hoagland. Yeah, he was another good one. Yeah.
Hoagland. Yeah, I'm just waiting for somebody to find all of those, skyscrapers,
Stanton Friedman.
Stanton Friedman, everybody's favorite physicist.
Yeah, but I was just thinking he actually
hated Bob Lazar.
He talked more sense than a lot of them.
I'm thinking of a different guy. What's his?
But Nick Pope he's a snake salesman. He's a liar. I'm not going to go about it. Really, there's no other way me to talk about it. I've done a video on Nick Pope. Please go on this channel. It's there somewhere, and I basically list off why he's a liar.
I know firsthand he's a liar. I've UFO sightings over Northern Ireland and contacted. I had some discourse, some level of discourse with him that I'm not going to go into, but he was about as useful as a chocolate fire guard.
I think he's about as useful as he looks. Did he be useful? If I'm in a fight, Dave, I'm grabbing hold of you. I'm not going to go hold of Nick Pope and go, "You got my back, mate." He looks like he would, wet lettuce. But I think his reliability is about as he looks like what he is, a complete and utter spineless bellend who will do anything for a paycheck. And I don't argue with him doing anything for a paycheck. I go to work, the job I hate every day because I need to get paid. And fair play, if I could talk about aliens every time a UFO movie comes out and get paid, I'd do it.
Only time he'd have your back is if there's a target on it.
Yes.
Yeah. But he keeps talking about his reliability. I'm a reliable source. I'm so reliable. Because you've lied about almost everything. You've lied about your job. You've lied about what you actually did for the MOD. You lie about how long you worked at the MOD. You've got your bosses coming out and going, "You didn't do what you say you did." That was not your job.
He was shuffling papers, weren't he? Let's have it right. That's what he was doing.
He was. He actually said he went out and researched the Cosford incident, and I know for a fact he didn't.
No, he didn't. He didn't do
and
that.
All the bosses came out and went, "That wouldn't have been his job anyway. He was a file clerk."
Like I said, he pushed papers around. When I contacted him, I learned very quickly somebody who hasn't got the intelligence to go to a map to find out where Strangford Lock is, which is available on any map, or you can just type into the internet, then he's not worthy of any further discourse. Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. Northern Ireland, Nick. Northern Ireland, lad.
Yeah.
Big green place at the side of England,
But he still gets wheeled out every time there's a UFO scene. These people do not help our cause at all of the truth. And that's all I care about. I don't have an agenda to say aliens are visiting the Earth and we're not alone. I don't have that agenda. I just want to know the truth. If they are, great. If they're not, okay. Aliens still exist, mathematically speaking. There's no chance we're alone in the universe. I hope not, anyway, the way we're treating our planet. But don't we like these morons that really don't help? They don't help. It just drives me to the wall.
Well, the other problem is the new American habit of hating science. Now, I mean, somehow or another, even scientists have become, political targets. There's a huge movement, against Carl Sagan, who's probably one of the best science teachers, science educators America's ever had. And, and I really hate to break it to these guys, but some of the founding fathers were scientists. Thomas Edison, Ben Franklin was really a scientist and an inventor, also a sex fiend, but let's look over that. But there's just this huge movement of anti-science in America, and I'm sure you guys have seen it on Facebook and displayed all over.
Absolutely.
I like to watch Fox News occasionally just to sort of like go, that's what they actually think.
Yeah.
Oh, I've just set Siri off. Shh, Siri. Siri, shut up. Unplugged. That's right.
Well, should we wrap up then? Do you think?
I think so. I think we've got that covered. So it was either definitely aliens or the Americans. I think Americans have been 2-1.
Not to throw a spanner in the works, it could have been the Welsh, Jamie. It could have been the Welsh. Perhaps you're right all this time.
They're too busy shagging sheep and things to build a UFO. They've got no intelligence. They're really being them. I love the Welsh. The only people I love more than the Welsh are the French.
And on that note, see you next week, everybody. Thanks very much for tuning in. That's weird.
If you are French and a subscriber, bye.
Sacre bleu.
So Jamie, you want to have a stream this week about the new Doctor Who?
I've put the links out. I don't know who the hell he is. I'm going to have to Google it.
Nkuti Gatwa?
No, I can't say his name. I wish they'd gone with the guy I said. It was so much better. But, oh well. Someone else come to me. They said, the British guy that used to do Sleepy Hollow? Do you remember that series a few years ago?
That was, that was a really good series. I love that.
Somebody said that to me. He should have done it. And I'm like, yeah, Bishop or something, his name was something like that. He was great. I was like, should have done somebody like that, but they've gone with somebody I don't know. But he was in some Netflix series, this guy.
He was also
Education or something.
He was also in the Apple Plus show. What was it? C with Jason Momoa this last season.
Yeah.
I'm
not watching it anyway.
He would have been excellent. He would have been excellent.
But okay then, guys.
All right, fine. I've kept you on for 14 extra minutes. I always pride myself of how long I can string this out.
It's a game for him now, yeah?
It is, yeah.
Well, we mentioned Doctor Who. They didn't go with what I picked, so I'm just disappointed, and I'm not going to watch it. So, happy days. Anything else come up with you guys this week? Anything else you wanted to see on the telly or that you wanted to talk about? Or?
Well, I started watching this movie that came out, I think it was December, maybe, Moonfall.
Any good?
It started out, well, it's like, his brother did, what's the guy's name? He did Independence Day.
Emmerich.
Yeah, Roland Emmerich. Yeah. And it
Yeah.
was that kind of a global kind of thing, and then there's the scrappy kind of conspiracist scientist that's working as a janitor, for NASA, so he can steal secrets. It was just, it was just like it was. I got halfway through it and said, "Oh crap, this movie's about Jamie and I." And I had
moon and aliens.
right, yeah, it was. It's like, and I guess my character's like, it was all had a favorite go-to line was, "I love Elon." So I would recommend that just if you like this channel.
I love Roland Emmerich films, but I'm not a massive. I don't think it's going to be. I will watch it at some point, but it doesn't look good to me. It looks like, to be fair, it's a brain off popcorn movie for me. I'm like, as long as I don't think about it too much, I might not get too annoyed. I tell you what I did do this week that I regretted. I made an error. I joined a Flat Earth Society Facebook group.
How'd that go?
Mate, I couldn't stop laughing. It was just
I'm curious about it though.
I pointed out that the sun, there's proof that the Earth isn't flat. It's called the sun, and the blokes went, "No, you're talking rubbish." And I'm like, "How am I talking rubbish? It can't just be going round and round." And then gravity, and somebody actually said, "Look, I've got a ball, and I drop some water on the top. It doesn't sit there, does it? It rolls down to the bottom and falls off. Proof." I was like, so I left the group after about 4 hours because I'd suddenly realised all I'd done for 4 hours was write comments on this group.
I was on one of those flat Earth rooms, I guess it is, in Twitter, where it's just it's audio conversations, like a group audio chat. And I was really troubled by how so many people were, I had a crazy idea that the Earth was flat, and were just anti-science. I mean, it was like there was no such thing as a space shuttle.
Yeah.
Mae Jemison was really just an actress. She wasn't a PhD astronaut. She was in Star Trek. She wasn't. Well, no, she was in Star Trek after she went to space. No. It was the aversion to reality.
Actress, not just in a TV show.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's stupid and it's crazy, and you got to laugh at it at some point in time. But it's also kind of concerning.
Yeah, it scares me to death. To be honest with
you.
It's not that they ignore science that scares me, mate. It's that they pick and choose. They go, look, this science proves what we're saying. Yes, but the other 99% doesn't. No. This science, like, Jesus Christ, come on, guys. But no, that was my only mistake this week. I lost half a day to that. Oops.
Well, at least you only wasted half a day.
Yeah. I just don't. So look at another planet. Is that flat? No, it isn't. Shut up. But anyway.
I think we can start a new conspiracy theory that the sun is flat.
It could be a big golden
flat sun society. Right.
A big golden dinner plate.
Yeah.
I've got a dinner plate with a soup painted on it.
Mm-hmm.
I got into an argument with a chap this week, and I said that God is a dog. I got to the point where I actually had him going, I'm like, no, mate. My argument was that God and dog backwards, coincidence. It's like, I think that's a subtle hint from God, Fido or Lassie or whatever. But also, my dog lives so much better than I do. I walk him, I feed him, I scratch his belly on demand, and I keep, he's not my pet. I'm his servant. I go out to work to feed the little bastard. I was joking, and I actually got this going. I think you might have a point. He goes, no, I don't have a point. It's a stupid joke.
Because God and dog, that's the yin yang, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And dogs love everybody. Wasn't that Christ's message? Dogs love everybody. So
and cats are Satan.
Yeah. See, you're onto something.
I'm going to start a religion.
You go for it.
Get tax exempt. That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us again. We'll be back next week. On Sidetrack next week. I'm also doing a Stargate quiz, so come join us for that if you get a chance. I think. if I can think of questions. And yeah, please, guys, if you're new to the channel, like, subscribe, do all that business. Join Stormy's that way. Join Stormy's channel. There's a link in the description, and Dave's channel, again, link in the description. Go join Sidetrack as well. Why not? While you're at it. Have a lovely week. Stay safe, boys.
Thanks for having me. Y'all be good, and thanks for everybody showing up in the chat. I really do appreciate it.
Take it easy, everybody. Be good.
No, if you can't be good, be careful.
Yes. Don't be Welsh.
Don't be Welsh.
Don't be Welsh.
That's a bit our motto. Don't be Welsh.
Don't be Welsh.
Bye, guys.